Today, we're talking about a car that revved to 9,000 RPM, had a gearbox that felt like a bolt-action rifle, and yet so balanced it could teach you how to drive. And honestly, it ripped up the rulebook on how a sports car should be built. This is everything you need to know about the Honda S2000. So, back in 1999, Honda launched this spectacular two-seat roadster for its 50th anniversary. They wanted to create a halo car that would project their engineering prowess onto the global stage, directly challenging European rivals. You won't believe this, but its roots actually trace back 4 years earlier to the 1995 Tokyo Motor Show, where they revealed a radical concept called the Sport Study Model, or SSM. They truly wanted a world beater. This revolutionary spirit wasn't just under the hood either. Did you know the S2000 was one of the first modern sports cars to be fitted with a push-button engine start? Not only was it futuristic, it was also useful. If you spin out, you can use your left hand to hit the push button to start the car, while your right hand is already on the shifter, ready to drop it into first gear, which saves precious seconds. The S2000 revived Honda's heritage of lightweight, front-engined, rear-drive S-cars from the 1960s, like the S500 and S800. By the time production ended in 2009, they had sold more than 110,000 of these worldwide. Building a convertible is a huge challenge because taking off the roof makes the car less rigid, especially when taking corners. Honda was having none of that, so they developed the high X-bone frame. This structure is an absolute engineering marvel, making the car incredibly stiff. In fact, it's so rigid that it can resist twisting and bending better than many cars with fixed roofs. A stiff frame is super important for good handling, because without it, the car's frame flexes, absorbing and then releasing suspension energy at the wrong time. This leads to the tires losing grip and the steering feeling sloppy. The S2000 also achieves the holy grail of handling, a perfect 50-50 front-to-rear weight distribution. But there's more engineering genius baked in. It utilizes a front mid-engine layout, meaning the entire drivetrain sits behind the center line of the front axle. This significantly lowers the vehicle's center of gravity, making it incredibly responsive. When you turn the wheel, it rotates instantly. Underneath, you also get a highly rigid four-wheel double wishbone suspension, monotube shock absorbers, and a standard limited slip differential to ensure that power is effectively transferred to the road. Let's get to the true soul of the S2000, its engine. This is where Honda threw down the gauntlet to the entire automotive world. The original F20C is a naturally aspirated inline-4 2-liter unit, which is reflected right in the car's name, following the tradition of earlier S roadsters. This engine is an absolute marvel of mechanical design. The JDM version, which actually had a higher compression ratio, produced 247 horsepower and delivered it at a frantic 8,600 RPM. Here's the staggering fact that cements its legend. The F20C achieved a specific output of 123.5 horsepower per liter. This figure held the global record for the highest specific power output of any mass-production naturally aspirated piston engine in a car for a full decade, finally being surpassed by the Ferrari 458 Italia in 2010. The VTEC is what gives it that addictive dual personality. It typically actuates between 5,500 to 6,000 RPM, depending on ECU triggers. That's the point where the engine transforms into a savage metallic scream, delivering an intoxicating, frenetic rush that few modern turbocharged cars can replicate. Its sheer brilliance was internationally recognized, winning the International Engine of the Year category for 1.8 to 2.2-liter engines 5 times consecutively, from 2000 to 2004. So the story gets a bit nuanced in 2004 with the introduction of the AP2 chassis. The AP1, from 1999 to 2003, was the raw, high-revving purist's choice, but it came with a steep learning curve. The aggressive suspension tuning and sharp responsiveness led to the infamous snappy oversteer if a driver suddenly lifted off the throttle mid-corner. Many admired this high-risk, high-reward challenge, but it also resulted in many inexperienced drivers losing control. Honda strategically addressed both the engine flexibility and handling stability for the AP2 generation. They also introduced the F22C1, a 2.2-liter unit, altering the car's character significantly. While peak horsepower remained almost the same at 237 horses, the increased displacement delivered an increase in mid-range torque, with the 162 pound-feet peak arriving much lower at 6,500 RPM. This made the car less frenetic, but far more manageable, offering better pull when you weren't screaming at the redline. The cost was a redline drop to 8,000 RPM from 8,800. The chassis received major updates to tame the rear end. They also revised the rear suspension by repositioning the upper control arm and strengthening its mounting points to the chassis. They also upgraded the wheels to standard 17-inch and wider rear tires for more grip. The gearing was also revised, giving the AP2 slightly lower ratios in first 4 gears for better acceleration, while 6th gear was made slightly taller. As a bonus, AP2s were fitted with a glass rear window and a defroster, a welcome upgrade over the earlier plastic AP1 windows. When the AP1 was first tested by the press, initial 0 to 60 times were often deceptively slow, around 6.8 seconds. This struggle was less about power and more about the engine's highly specific power delivery. To successfully launch the AP1 required exceptional clutch control to keep the engine spinning above 6,000 RPM. However, once you learned to manage that VTEC, the S2000 was actually pretty fast. The refined AP2 with its better torque and revised gearing was much quicker, with a 0 to 60 sprint in a more respectable 5.4 seconds. But for the ultimate experience, you have to talk about the Club Racer, or CR. Released in 2008, it was Honda's final track-focused model, with a massive wing, revised aerodynamics, and reduced weight. The CR was immediately dominant in several SCCA competition classes. Its limited production run meant few were ever made, and this scarcity, combined with its track pedigree, has cemented its status as a top-tier collector vehicle. The S2000 arrived in a golden era, positioned above the Miata but competing directly with premium European roadsters like the Z4 and the Porsche Boxster. It offered the engineering ingredients of an exotic supercar in a compact, reliable Japanese package. Sales peaked around 10,000 units annually between 2001 and 2002. However, the economic climate eventually choked the niche market. Sales plummeted sharply to just 795 units by 2009. A decline largely attributed to the global financial crisis. The economic downturn effectively killed the S2000. It remains one of the best analog sports cars ever made, because there is nothing on the market today that replicates its specific blend of engine drama, technical precision, and analog feel, which is why this car is truly legendary.